I thought it would be fun to just talk about what I think is a common millennial struggle for our age gap, which is having kids and not having kids. And I figure I can't be the only woman that doesn't have kids that's not having these similar thoughts. There's the always present fear of, I don't really want to have them right now, but will I regret it later?
Was there anything that was the same? I mean, no, honestly, nothing's the same. Nothing was what I was expecting because I just didn't know.
Welcome back and happy Tuesday, turkeys. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for 2 decades.
I am not apologizing for who I am or what I like or the people that I love.
How do I be a wife? How do I be a mom? And how do I be myself in all of that? You didn't see that coming, did you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Well, we're back and we're here and it's spring and Mardi Gras is over, thank God. I don't know. That's all I've got on my list of updates in the world.
St. Patty's Day is coming up.
Yeah.
Did we already pass it? Are we
I
here?
don't know.
It's next week, I think.
Yeah, it'll be close.
Yeah.
Probably gonna have some corned beef and cabbage.
Happy Irish luck to ya. That was
Happy
horrible.
birthday, Boyd.
Yeah, happy birthday, Dad.
All right. Well, I'm lacking my dogs today as my recording mates because we have a new baby kitten and it's too much chaos for them to be together. So she'll be bouncing around in the background probably. But hopefully all the animals will be one and at peace soon so I can have all of them together.
You will make the animal kingdom proud. One day they'll all get along, but she's so cute and tiny.
It might be a pipe dream, but we're really hoping and praying. So send me all of your thoughts and prayers and incantations. Okay, well today, in an abrupt change of pace, I thought it would be fun to just talk about what I think is a common millennial struggle for our age gap, which is having kids and not having kids.
No, you brought this topic up and I was like, selfishly, yes, totally here for it, because I know we've obviously talked offline about your thoughts versus life versus society, all the things, but I was curious if you had updates or if your thoughts had changed or like where you were at. So
yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's just kind of an ongoing conversation that Jason and I have, or just something I think about, and I figure I can't be the only woman that doesn't have kids that's not having these similar thoughts, because how old are we?
30.
Here's my friend.
33?
Yeah, okay, that's what it is, because I was trying to figure out my age that I was turning with Jason. So we're going to be 34.
Yeah.
Which means we're almost going to be 35.
Mid-30s. I know.
And I don't have any qualms or sadness or weird feelings about changing my age, but I have always said that 35 was my cutoff for childbearing of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm struggling with, well, I'm not struggling, but it's like, wait, that's actually closer than it used to sound.
Right. Because you feel so young and you think you have all this time, and then you kind of realize that life is moving really fast and it's actually coming up like in a couple years.
Yeah. And people are always saying, freeze your eggs, but well, we can get into this more. Jason, for context, is also 9.5 years, basically 10 years older than me. So that's kind of part of it too, where I don't want for him, and we don't want for him to be, if I was 40 and doing IVF, he'd be 50. Like, who is it? Robert De Niro had a kid at like 75. It's just
I was going to say it happens, but do you want that? Yeah.
That's just not really what we want to do. And if we were closer in age, maybe that would be more of a discussion. Do we want to do an egg freezer or something like that? But anyway, that's what kind of for me prompted all of this, was realizing, I'm about to be the age that I said was my cutoff. So if I'm going to make a decision, it's the whole thing of the timeline that Jason and I said is approaching. So it's becoming more of a reality. Mm-hmm. Is that something that I'm going to change? Would that make me want to change my mind? I think for people who don't have kids, there's the always present fear of, I don't really want to have them right now, but will I regret it later? And just because of biology, there's hard and fast timelines, usually as a woman, of getting pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So
what if you were 40? What if you felt ready at 40? Would you? Yeah.
I would not.
Okay.
I would not myself. I would not want to naturally conceive at 40.
Okay.
Now, I would have no problem adopting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I've always been interested in doing. So I think we can get into all of this, but there's just so many things to consider.
Well, and it doesn't help that I feel like at this age, and we've talked about it, you're a married woman. And even those who are married who maybe are trying to have kids and are having trouble having kids, the fact that society is like, well, when are you guys going to have kids? When are you guys going to have kids? When are you going to have the next one? When are you going to have the next one? Like all these things, you don't know if they can. You don't know if they're trying and they want it, but they can't. And then maybe they don't. It's just weird society. Society's like quote unquote pressure to like do the normal thing is interesting. I know you don't really, well, I don't know. Do you feel like that affects you at all or not really? Yeah.
I don't think so. I sort of think there's also been a weird counter pressure of don't have kids or have them later or wait. And I don't mind the balance of the two, but there's definitely a community of no kids and
Mm-hmm.
married and I love my life. And I don't know. I sort of think that's a little bit of a weird, I don't, maybe some of this is just social media niches and people box themselves into a corner so they can have attention. But I don't want my whole identity to be that I have kids if I were to have them, but I also wouldn't want my whole identity to be not having kids either because that's a weird lane to me.
Yeah. Like again, like far pendulum to one side. Like where's the middle ground there? Yeah.
Yeah, like make a choice. And I guess I can just, well, here, I had laid out a couple of questions because obviously you're a mom and you are approaching a mom of 2 years,
Yeah, crazy. In a couple
right?
months, he'll be two.
June,
May.
May. What's wrong?
Because he was supposed to be June. So you're not completely
Okay,
wrong.
we're gonna go with that. I think it's also Jason and my aunt are June. I have
We have
no,
a
he's
lot.
the only May child that I have in my life.
Whoa. Yeah, I mean Kenny's May too, so it's like my men are in May,
Oh,
my
that's
husband and my
easy.
baby. They're 2 days apart, which is so funny.
Oh, yeah, because he ruined Kenny's birthday. Not
Yeah,
really.
kinda.
He ruined the plans that you had for Kenny's birthday. He was a great birthday present.
Exactly.
That's probably the better way to say it. I think legitimately one time I told Jason that I said it wrong, but I said it something like Kayla was sad because it ruined Kenny's birthday. And he was like, there's no possible world in which Kenny thinks the arrival of his son is ruining his
Exactly.
birthday. And I was
For
like,
sure.
you're right. I should reword that.
It's true though. It was just a little bit of a surprise. But yes, yeah, it's crazy. He'll be two in a couple months. And life is obviously looks a lot different than pre-baby. So
Right? Let me dive into, we already went down half of my tangents, but did you have any hesitations before you had KK? Guys, that's not his real name, okay? That's just what I'm calling.
don't think so. Like we knew we wanted kids. We had been together for a good amount of time before getting married, so we were like super ready. Again, we didn't think we were gonna get pregnant that fast, but we did, and we were just really excited. I think again, it was almost like naivete, kind of just being like just so excited and not knowing what to expect, and understanding it was a big life change,
Yeah.
but being so ready for it that I mean, I don't think I really understood fully how much it would change things, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
no, I didn't have any apprehension because I didn't really have any, I didn't know what to know to be apprehensive about.
Do you think knowing the information you know, if you guys decide to have a second, would that make you more or less nervous? Or maybe it's just like a mixed bag of who knows?
I've thought about this because we've talked about it and it's like half of me is like, okay, well, we know now and we know how to do things differently. We've like learned some, you know, I wouldn't want to call them mistakes, but we know how to do some things differently that I think would help. But also knowing how hard it was and is, like the raising of the child, but also the pregnancy and the birth. It's like
Yeah.
half of me is like, I know, so like I feel better, like I'm prepared. And then half of me is like, oh my God, I know what to expect. And that's a little terrifying. Like all of it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's kind of like 50-50.
Yeah, I can see that. I had one friend tell me that their life had changed so much going from no kid to one kid, that the change from one kid to two kids, what didn't feel as life shattering
You've
because
told me
there's
this,
already
and
kids.
yes, I'm really hoping that's the case.
I mean, it was obviously like they had to figure out and there's more things going on, but I was like, you know what, that tracks because she was just saying that everything, her free time changed so much. The
Mm-hmm.
difference in her free time and her me time and her self identity from 0 to 1 looked astronomically larger than 1 to 2.
Yes, yes. I feel that sentiment and I'm hopeful that that would be the case when we get there because that makes sense to me because it's such a drastic shift. I mean, when you are with someone for gosh, was it 4, 5, 6 years, just the two of you. You have
Yeah.
independence, you have freedom. We traveled a lot. Like, we got to do all these things. And then to like completely shift our lifestyle and like go through an identity crisis and figuring out how to be newly married with a baby.
Well,
It
yeah, I
was
was
a
gonna say you're
lot of
not gonna.
change.
You have, as far as I know, you guys aren't planning on buying a new house,
No,
and you won't be planning a wedding.
correct. I think that'll hopefully lessen the stress as well. It
So
was a
hopefully,
lot of change.
whenever y'all get around to it, it'll just be one major life event happening instead of three.
Seriously, seriously. So I feel like that gives me some hope. But it is
Yeah.
weird. I don't know. It's going to be, whenever that happens, it's going to be interesting. Like, we both want a second, but I do have some apprehension because we've had the first now.
That
And
makes
it,
sense. So net larger apprehension on starting the
yes,
number two journey than the number one journey. So that's funny.
1000%.
Oh, I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy because, like, it's so hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I miss, like, being able to just, I mean, just the simplest things. Going out to dinner. But who cares? We can find a babysitter. But it's even like we're having some sleep issues right now, which you're fully well aware. Just not being able to like go to bed together at a normal time like we used to. It's like those little
Yeah.
small things that like really make it so hard sometimes. But then like I look at him as in my son and I'm like, there's no way I could be in this world without him now. Like it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
weird. Like it's so challenging and so rewarding, which everyone says, but now I'm in it and it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. Is there anything that, well, I'm sure there's a ton, but is there anything that stands out as being surprising about parenthood that was just completely not what you expected?
That's a good question. Parenthood. Well, I thought breastfeeding was going to be easier than it was. That was a funny joke. But that was more specific to me. Parenting in
I
general.
mean, it can just be for you specifically.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't know. I worded everything as the non-gendered version just in case it made a difference in how you answered it. So you could
No.
pick, like,
Yeah. Well, that was a big surprise. That was a very big surprise in the beginning. And then I think moving out of that, I just feel as though the weight of wanting to raise this child in the best way possible and be a good role model is a lot more than I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but just, I mean, literally anything you say or do, he's immediately copying. Like my mom was over yesterday and she like rubbed her eye and then he was like, and we'll sigh and he'll go, eh. I mean, it's
no.
scary. So we're at the point where like I have to watch my words and I have to watch my actions and I have to control my temper when I get frustrated. It's
Yeah,
I think the pressure of me being a better person is the most humbling part of parenting.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. Were there things that you expected that were the same that you expected? Because we all know you did a lot of research.
Honestly, it's funny because every baby's different. And I feel like, was there anything that was the same? I mean, no, honestly, nothing's the same. Nothing was what I was expecting because I just didn't know. Isn't that
Yeah.
weird? Like, I did so much research, but until you're in it, you don't even know how you would handle it. But it's funny because now that we're here in a place like he's at daycare, he just sat on a big chair at the big table and just ate a quesadilla that I made for him last night. Just like this is crazy because how many months ago, well, it was a little bit ago, it was like a year, at least a year now. You couldn't even like you didn't even know how to chew or swallow or do anything. It's weird. And I don't know how we even got to this point. Like, we
Yeah.
just have made it and we figured it out. I feel like it's different than I was expecting. I don't feel like anything lines up. Not
Do
in a
you
bad
think the
way,
research still helped?
100%. Because at least
Yeah.
I feel like I had a base knowledge of what to consider and what to expect. So I think that helped me mentally be okay with the big change. But then, I had a
Like it
good
was
base
helpful.
foundation, but it's still, when you're in it, it's still different than it's not textbook perfect. A baby's not going to be exactly how research says they're going to be, type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. That's how I was just going to say with textbooks with school. Like,
Hmm.
you can learn. I had textbook knowledge of my field and how to interact with clients and things like that. But the actual practice
Hmm.
is informed by the textbook, but it doesn't line up perfectly ever.
Well, it's like when the teacher says read chapters 1 through 6, the quiz is going to be on chapters 1 through 6. The quiz is going to be on the chapter, and then you get the quiz, and it's like this was not anywhere in the book.
Right?
This was nowhere in the book. Remember those when they would throw these quizzes and tests out? Like, what? Where was this information?
Do you know how
So,
happy I am to not be in school anymore?
same.
And I feel like I'm learning more now in my life than at some points, not all points, but some points in my academic career.
Agreed. Agreed. Crazy.
Let me see if I had, yeah, I think we kind of covered all of my main questions. Do you have any follow-up questions? Otherwise, I wrote myself down talking points.
No, I'm curious about how you feel about everything. And like how you, I guess you explained already, like your timeline is based on your what they deem a healthy age, plus also accounting for Jason's
Yeah.
age. But I mean, watching me go through this, does it, watching like your friends go through motherhood, does it freak you out more, or does it seem, has that changed your perspective at all, watching the people around you go through motherhood and like all the crap that comes with it, but all the love that comes with it?
Right? I think that watching my friends have kids has made me more worried that I'll regret not having kids. But has also made me more aware of how demanding it is, if that makes sense. Like, it's given me more of a respect for how much parenting takes out of a person. But then again, I'm wondering for not the women that are just hardcore, I never want kids, but for the women who kind of live in this, I don't think I want them right now. I don't really want it to go off of or I would be sad if someone told me I couldn't, or it's simmering on the back burner, but I'm not really ready to deal with it, people. It's just that constant like existential dread of, am I going to regret this someday? And what sucks is that you have no ability to know that until you're at someday when the door is for sure closed, at least on physical, like conceiving yourself. And you're there. So I think that's just what's hard, is I can see how fulfilling it is. And then I also have some friends who have older kids that are out of the just absolute tunnel vision of toddlerhood. And I'm like, that shit looks fun as hell. But then sort of you can't just have a 7-year-old.
I know. Yeah.
And I think okay, obviously people have all different kinds of reasons for having kids or mentalities, or, some people just really want to experience pregnancy and really want to have a kid specifically with their partner to lay the groundwork. I've not been that person ever in my adult life. Just, I don't know. I don't feel a huge curiosity about myself being pregnant. I don't have any thought or care at all about passing on my genes. Like, nothing about that matters to me. I don't give a shit at all. I could care so much less. I don't give a fuck. The only thing that I did think was interesting is when Jason and I got married, and now that we are still married, I do have times where I'm like, I would love to bear your seed. Like, there's some kind of biological, I swear to God, some kind of like biology involved in that, where especially when things are stable and things are going well, part of me is just kind of like, or, he has his tool belt on. Like, there's those times where I'm like, yes. But that passes. And again, I don't care about mine specifically. I just sometimes feel bad, like, that I'm not going to let him do that. But he's also not super obsessed with his own heritage, or I don't know. Neither of us have we need to keep the family line going. I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of people who feel that way. I don't understand it, and neither he nor I have it. So it's good that we're compatible in that.
Yes.
I am also not somebody that is have a kid first, figure everything else out. I don't think that's a wrong way of doing things, but it's not my top priority, where I'm willing to risk financial insecurity in like any kind of a big way to have a kid. I don't know if that's me doubting my own mental fortitude. I don't know. But I just sort of think in life, it seems like there's people that are, I'm going to have a kid and I'm going to make it work. And then there's people who are, I want to make the surrounding area work and then have a kid. And I don't think either one is right or wrong. I just think you probably want to have a partner that's on the same wavelength as you.
Yep.
Which we are, thankfully. I mean, God bless him. When we first started dating, I was like, just so you know, if we get married, you have to be fine never having kids. And it wasn't to say that I never want to have them, but I had known not you, but I had known women through work and other places that didn't feel ready to have kids. or were kind of ambivalent about the decision, and their husbands were just like
Mm-hmm.
all in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if this sounds shitty, but I just still kind of feel like you're not the one. Like, I don't think you should be the one to make the decision when you're not the one that has to grow the fetus and give birth and deal with the hormones. Like, your contribution to this is sort of less, at least in the beginning. And even if you're like super dad participation station when the baby's born, like, you still can't breastfeed.
You're right.
Okay, so like there's just a period in the beginning that there's way more investment for the mom if she's giving birth that way. And I just sort of, I don't know. I just found it off-putting, right or wrong. That's just how it felt. So I was very clear that I did not want to feel pressured into something like that when it's so huge.
Yes.
I don't know. So that's sort of the landscape. Now, obviously, it's a very weird time because we both work for the same federal agency. So I'm like, ain't having this discussion when there's like the potential for both of us to lose our jobs. So where I already felt like things financially were just weird, inflation is weird. I could go on a rant about Florida homeowner insurance for 500 years, Ron DeSantis. But now there's this whole new thing where our income doesn't even necessarily feel as stable as it used to. And I'm like, well, hell fucking no. Because I just I don't know. I think I watched my parents have a lot of financial stress and I don't want to take that on.
I mean, at this moment, 100%, I feel like it's a very logical, practical, smart, and responsible way to look at it. To play devil's advocate, not like I'm trying to convince you, because literally you should do whatever life gives you and decides. But I've heard people say, because when people do act, they're like, oh God, like it happened, now we're here. Or we should wait because XYZ, but we really do want kids. Like more of that type of camp where they really
Yeah.
want it, but they feel like they have to wait for whatever reason. I always heard and kind of remembered the sentiment of like, if you wait for the perfect timing, like it'll never be perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and there'll always be something. Like, life is just freaking crazy. And usually the chances of all of the facets of your life being perfect to be like, yeah, we should bring a baby into this world now. Like, they're very slim. Now, in this circumstance, very different. And I do think that's, oh God, it's crazy what's going on, especially with both of y'all working for the same thing. But yeah, that just kind of came to mind. That's how we've looked at it with our perspective and like what we wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, you and I can talk about it because you're not coming also from a
Yeah.
nonsense place, but
Yeah.
there are some people, the trope of there's never a perfect time does drive me crazy when it's randos in the world saying it, because I'm like, okay, it's true. It's so true. And I'm a control freak and I recognize that. So there's never going to be a perfect time. But are there better times?
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I think that's the other half of that sentence that people need to start including. It's also not helpful if you're like Betty and you're 65 and you had the benefit of the boomers economy and now your kids are raised and you're retired and Social Security still exists. Like, I don't want to hear it from you. I'll hear it from somebody that's within my age range that's living kind of in similar circumstances, but I feel a murderous rage when it's somebody that's already done everything and is like completely out of the current financial picture starts lecturing about that.
Well, because
topic.
they have no responsibility, but they want to like give you their advice, even though it doesn't affect them. Yeah.
And they have no respect for how different the income to housing ratio or income to daycare ratio or any of that looks like.
Crazy.
So,
Cool. Okay, my last question to you, because this is kind of how I've always thought about it, like as for us, like with how many kids we want, because we've talked about this. We agree on two. I would rather have three. We'll see what happens. I have the right to change my mind. But when I picture myself at like 65, so 30 years from now, 65, or it's a little bit longer than that, and it's Christmas or it's Thanksgiving or whatever, and we're all around the dining room table. I don't know why I get emotional even talking about this because it's so silly. I think growing up in a bigger family with my mom's side, it was nice to have that.
Yeah.
And like I just feel like if the kids come home and we've got 3 kids at the table plus me and Kenny, it's like that's kind of how family feels. So I guess my question to you, gosh, anyway, is when you're 65, what does your life look like when you sit down for dinner? Do you have you guys thought about that?
Yeah. Well, that's okay. So that's the other part of it where again, I go back to it's a long road between a newborn and adult children.
Yeah,
And nothing's guaranteed. And I don't want to have a kid. I don't want to have kids because of a made up future scenario.
that's true. It's a good point.
Like if we already had them, I would think about those things.
Yeah.
But we don't. And there's so, maybe I'm like overly cynical, but there's so many weird things that can happen between this and that I wouldn't, I don't want to have kids to say that I want to have an adult relationship with my child. I want to have kids because I'm like, I want to raise a human.
That's a good way to look at it because that's a good part of it. That's the majority of it.
And to the flip side, you know, there's people like, I want to have a baby. I'm like, you're not having a baby. You are having a whole adult. You are having a lifetime. Like you're creating a being, or not. You're bringing a being into this world. This is not. You're not gonna have a cuddly little baby that for a little bit.
For like,
but this is so much bigger.
And that's all. And then it gets really real. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
100%.
know. So it's a weird feeling. And then you wonder, is it selfish to not have kids? Like, does that make you a selfish, self-centered person? Does it, like, if I don't have kids as a woman, am I missing out on a part of my female identity that I will regret someday? You know, there's just so many ins and outs about that. And I can't get all caught up in all of the things all of the time, but it's just a huge decision. I think not having kids feels just as equally big as having them. And I don't know that people necessarily talk about it from that point of view all the time, but there's a lot of real worries and nerves. And I think the thing that freaks me out the most is that if we lived in a climate where we could live off of Jason's income solely and comfortably, I think my opinion would change completely. And that's the other thing where I'm like, well, fuck, that kind of sucks, because I could make, I don't know. I don't really know how many changes we could really make reasonably to make that happen. Does that make sense?
It's hard because
I watch you guys do it, like my working mom friends. That shit's rough. And again, I know once you get out of the traumatic tunnel of toddlerdom, things slow down to some extent. I mean, they change, but I don't know that it's, I mean, you more than likely you'll be sleeping, at least until they're old enough to try to sneak out of the house. But, and then drive, and then there's all new levels of stress. I don't know that I want to do that in a situation where I have to be in a helping profession, helping people all day, and then I have to come home and be needed more. I don't know that I can as much, like even with want. And then I also think if I did a job that wasn't helping people and kind of giving back to humanity at large, I might have more of a drive or want to have kids for like the purpose of life. Does that make sense?
So really,
I feel like what I do matters. So that's not pushing me as much on the front of like, what's the point of life and why am I here? Like, I feel like what I do, it makes a difference for people, and I'm, it gives me a paycheck, but I don't feel like I'm missing out on some key aspect of contributing to society.
Right. Okay. But say hypothetically Jason did make it whatever your life looks like, where you guys could comfortably live off his income, and you didn't have this job that gave you this fulfilling thing, and you did feel financially more stable, then at that point you think your perspective would change a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Isn't that crazy though? Like just the factors of life would change your mind so much. Like that's where it gets that's where it gets tricky.
But I can't conceive of a world where we could do that. And I don't know that I'm willing to make concessions. I don't know that I'm maybe willing to make the concessions that would be needed for that to happen. And maybe if we had identified that early when we first got married, then we could have set things up to do that. But again, it wasn't ever my drive where like I had to have kids. But sitting here now, I'm like that. There's a scenario in which I would feel less trepidation, but it might also just be fantasy land.
That's interesting.
Because it's just, I don't know. Or at least to have the ability to take off for like 2 years. Comfortably. But again, he and I are just both so ambivalent that if we really, really, really wanted to make it work, I'm sure that we could. But we don't really, really want to. And there's a hell of a lot of barriers between here and there.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the motivation exists enough to do it. And then I guess to close this out, my other thing is just, I think if I ever really felt like there was a hole and we needed to have kids, or it was something we really wanted to do, I would have zero problems adopting it.
Yeah.
Even an older child.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Well, I feel like
Just
that's
the
a good way to
horror.
look at it. I know it's really sad, and there is such a need for that.
And
Not
maybe
saying
that's
like,
why I don't give a shit about passing on my genetics. Like maybe there is some part of this whole plan where that's why. Because I
hmm
also, when you're talking about kids that are coming out of foster care and some of those situations, I've seen shit go really sideways if a
hmm
family already has a kid and you bring a
yeah,
really traumatized older child into that situation.
for sure.
There's all of it's hard. No matter what, there's risks involved in just life and making decisions. But that's kind of where I'm at, and I think that's what I'm resting on is like
hmm
the ability to be a parent never goes away. Like we could
Correct.
do that. We have that ability forever. But it is weird with my timeline of 35 and feeling like there may not be as much security in my job and his job for the next 4 years. And I was like, well,
Yeah,
that's going to bring us well beyond 35.
yeah, yeah,
So that's what kind of prompted all of this for me to bring it back around.
yeah. Well, I like that you guys. The most important thing is you're on the same page. There is some time to figure things out,
Mm-hmm.
and you can always be a parent, like you said. What
Mm-hmm.
that whether it's your seed, as you say, or his seed. What did you say? Your lineage,
Yeah.
or adopting. Like I do, I respect that opinion a lot, and having that option is a beautiful option. And at
Mm-hmm.
least you don't feel as like pressure, like, well, it's 35 or I'm never gonna be a mom, type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that would be
Yeah.
really, 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 really stressful.
Yes. If I really just was like, I have to know what it's like to be pregnant, I have to physically bear children, I think I'd be having a full conniption fit right now. But luckily, that's not the case. So I don't know. We'll see. For now, I'm just trying to be like a cool aunt.
You're a great aunt.
And thank you. And I don't know. I feel like we're going to end up taking care of our parents. Like
Yeah, there's a
there will
lot
be
of factors.
caretaking things that happen. And we'll do things to not be selfish pieces of shit that just are consuming and providing nothing back to the earth. So I
Yeah.
think that's where we are.
I mean, you have a new
Anyway,
cat.
yeah, I'm filling baby holes with
So
animal
sweet.
babies. Anyway, let us know if any of you are in the same boat. And until next week,
Love you, bye.
love you, bye. Guess who had to pee halfway through this podcast?
No, I'm gonna say bye to Kenny while you pee, and then we'll paddle it up.
Her.
Are we